fixing them. For the quiz and test, you have to know meanings and conjugations of any of your verbs from your chart. The quiz is going to be on Tuesday. I'm going to give you, part of the homework tonight will be knowing meanings and conjugations, but I also give you this chart again, same chart, but with verbs in English so that you can practice both, not just conjugations. So if you have the right answer, you can always go back and check here. I want you to pull up the same document from Edmodo. Today is the complete document so that it has the extra chart at the end of the document, but basically pull up the present tense chart that it looks exactly like this from today's Edmodo post. And then we're going to look at the rest of it that didn't upload yesterday, which half of your homework was supposed to be present tense practice and half of it was supposed to be preterite. So let's look at the basement preterite conjugations. So when you finish with that, pull up the document and then scroll to the second page where it'll look like this. We're going to go ahead and work on it together so that we can walk through it. Present tense, just to refresh, are all O to UE, E to IE, and E to I. Boot changes, and that only happens in the present tense. For preterite, I kind of wrote the whole little paragraph here of making sure that you know that in the preterite, we're talking about it, we can still look at the same chart, we're just now looking at it from a different standpoint, different view. Anybody still need the present tense conjugations? So in the preterite, they're going to be E to I, and O to U changes, and only in the basement. So I'll let you read through that on your own time so you can come back to this. Just a couple of reminders of how something that changes in the present will change in the preterite in a different way. Okay. So let's go through and answer these. And always look at your directions to know if we're talking about present or preterite. And since for this chapter we're kind of going back and forth, we are going to focus on present tense, but I do want us to know preterite as well. So we have our first question there, ella, and then dormirse. And we're going to do that in the preterite past tense. So ella is in the basement, and if the verb has an O, then automatically you make an O to U change. If the verb has an E, then you make an E to I change. So conjugation for the first one, take care of the reflexive pronoun, se durmió. And let me remind you again that when we're talking about these preterite verbs, and when we're looking at the chart, we're only talking about verbs that end in IR, so we're only going to use our IR endings. So it should be a good way to kind of narrow down. Always automatically rule out any AR or ER verbs. The second one, who's doing the asking? They, or in this case, y'all. So the y'all conjugation here, you would change E to I. And then put your ending for the y'all form. The next sentence says, Maria went to a concert and she had a lot of fun. Who had a lot of fun? She did. So again, same thing. Don't always look right before the blank. It's not always going to be where your subject is. Okay. So she went to a concert. She had a lot of fun. It's an E to I change, and it has a reflexive. So take care of the reflexive, move it forward, and make your E to I change because Maria is one of the basement conjugations. The next one says the funny guy had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And Paula laughed a lot. So again, don't just look at fun and Paula laughed. That wouldn't make any sense. Don't just look right before the blank for your conjugations. So we're talking about Paula is the only person that laughed. So se, take care of it. This is one of the ones that you would end up with RE, because you're going to do E to I change. So RI, and then your ending is IO. So what we're going to do, remember, is just drop one of those I's, because you can't have two I's in a row. Okay, the next one, the conference was not interesting, and Juan and Martin got bored. So plural conjugation, and it is in the basement, se aburrieron. Now in this case, the verb aburrir, se, is reflexive, take care of it, and it doesn't have an O in it, so there's nothing to change. It doesn't have an E in it, there's nothing to change. So that's a clue that that's a regular verb. You're not always going to have just stem-changing verbs in a nice little package like this chapter has. So just know that when we start ruling it out, I'm going to show you one other example also on this document, exercise C, that has some AR verbs and ER verbs. If we're doing AR and ER verbs, we're not making any changes for those. We're only doing changes for verbs that end in IR in the preterite. We know to only use these endings. If we're using AR endings, that should be kind of a red flag. Okay. The last one, the waiter served the soup very hot. So just start narrowing down on aburrir. Said there was no O or U to change, so that was a regular verb. But servir is on your chart, so that's how you know. For now, all the verbs that are on your chart are stem changers. So we'll start seeing them together. The next section, just to go over this fairly quickly, I just want to make a couple of points here that if you're in the basement, awesome. Make the change for anything that's singular, anything that's plural. But if it's the yo form, the tu form, or the nosotros form, you're not making the change because those changes are out of the out of the basement. So if it's out of the basement, it's not in the bottom two conjugations, you don't make the change. So then the rest of them that it's not there, you just do regular conjugations. No big deal there. Any questions on those? All right, the next page is the reteaching page. And same thing, you can read through this top part and see what it says. But just reminders that in the present tense, O to UE, E to IE, E to I, boot changes. In the preterite, there are O to U and E to I. In the basement, only in the preterite, only for verbs that end in IR. So right here, I crossed out UE so that you don't confuse yourself. Know that you're talking about preterite. Always read your directions. It'll tell you which one to conjugate for. UE is not a change in the preterite, so I crossed it out because that's a present tense change. IE is not a change in the preterite, so I crossed it out. It's a present tense change. So if it helps to kind of narrow it down, do it that way. Okay. All right, the first one, nosotros, and then vestirse. Same thing here. We have a reflexive pronoun that we have to take care of. Which reflexive pronoun agrees with nosotros? Nos. So nos, and then are we going to make a change for this verb? But it's one of the verbs that's on our stem changing chart. Why aren't we making a change? It's not in the basement. Not one of the bottom two. Regular conjugations. The next verb we haven't seen before. It's the verb conseguir. It's just not on your chart. Two things to talk about with this verb. One, E to I change, but the GU and QU, whenever we hear like the word que, the word for what, you don't say que, you don't hear that U at all. So QU and GU are seen as combination sounds. We don't change I to Y when we have those three vowels in a row at the end. Plus, I don't know of any verb that would actually have two different weird, irregular stem changes with it. It would only be, if it's a stem change, you're only changing one thing or the whole thing, which we'll see later in the course about it. Next verb we know though, the verb servir for Claudia would be a stem change, E to I. Sirvió. Accent, very clear there. The next one, your subject is nuestros amigos. Should the nuestros give you any sort of clue for what your conjugation is going to be? Nope. Nuestros just tells you our. Our what? Friends is what the subject is. So our friends asked for a lot of food would be stem change or no? We're not looking at the nosotros form, we're looking at the plural friends form, y dieron, E to I change. So nuestros does not help you conjugate. Next one is the yo form. What should that signal in your brain? No stem change. Regular verb. Number 6, we're back to the ustedes form. So we're going to make a change. Number 7, we're in the nosotros form. Not going to make a change. Number 8, back in the singular form. Make a change if it's anything other than yo or tu. So if it's in the basement, make a change. If it's not in the basement, like the nosotros form, no change. Out of the basement, nothing to worry about. Regular conjugations. So you don't technically have to fill all those in. I just want to show you the point of what's happening here, making sure that change when it's in the basement, don't when it's not. Only change the verbs that have E or O. Not all verbs will be stem changing verbs, and so on. And then this is the tricky exercise here. Let me just talk you through this one, because this is going to be part of the homework. I wanted you to actually think through and see. But a couple of things to kind of watch out here. First, notice that we have, there's not going to be any AR or ER stem changing preterite basement verbs. Okay. Automatically, what I did here first is I ruled out any of the verbs in black that are ER or AR verbs, automatically regular conjugations. So rule out any AR or ER verbs. Then go back and look at your IR verbs. Are all IR verbs going to be stem changers? No. So decidir is a verb from our Spanish 1 list. Good old regular verb, no changes to do. So even though it has an E on it, then you don't make the change. Now, am I going to confuse you and ask you to do that on a quiz? No, because this chapter we're focusing on stem changing verbs. So I'm only going to give you stem changing verbs. I just wanted to point out that on this exercise, you're ruling out any AR or ER verbs, and then for all your, and this was a mistake that I made here, you can kind of see. Remember that for ER verbs in the preterite, your endings, there's no EMOS, it's only IMOS. But those are regular conjugations because they're ER verbs. And same thing here. If it's the yo form, you don't make a change. But if you're in the basement, you do make the change. Does everybody understand the difference between present, preterite, stem changing verbs as a whole family? Are there any questions? We're going to come back and focus on the present tense more so than we will the preterite, but we will have a section of basement preterite verbs on your test. Your quiz that's on Tuesday is only going to be over present tense verbs. So quiz Tuesday is going to be verbs in English, only for present tense, ODUE, E to IE, and E to I. So anytime we see those 3 changes, we automatically know it's only present tense. Because ODUE and E to IE don't exist in the preterite. So you're going to have to know meanings and conjugations for the whole chart that you got. And then same thing that I talked about in the beginning, the original chart that we went over, this chart right here, on the next page of your document, I changed all these verbs to English verbs so that you can practice them again. But you should have the answers to go back and double check.